Let's give just a few more seconds. Let some of our attendees roll in. We're so excited. Great information. Really looking forward to it. Hi, everyone. My name is Ty Adams. Welcome to TRA Marketplace 2020. Thank you for joining us today for our TABC update with General Nettles. Please feel free, this is day 5 of this awesome show, to put any questions you may have in the Q&A, and they will be answered either during or at the end, and we'll try to get through as many of those as we possibly can for you. But without further delay, I am excited to introduce our Big Ben stage sponsor, Texas Mutual.
In response to the pandemic, Texas Mutual will distribute $330 million in dividends to eligible policyholders 2 months ahead of schedule. We're also sending $2 million to nonprofits on the front lines of the COVID-19 effort. Better days are coming, but in the meantime, we'll be on the job helping Texas businesses. To learn how dividends are supporting employers in this time of need, go to texasmutual.com/dividends.
Wow, with great gratitude, we are so grateful for Texas Mutual, awesome state sponsor. To get us kicked off, I want to introduce none other than our awesome and amazing TRA board president, Mr. John Gessner, that's joining us on today, as well as my own beloved and the amazing superwoman of the Texas Restaurant Association, our very own CEO. We just love her so much, Dr. Emily Williams-Knight. And Emily, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you, Dr. Knight.
Great. Thank you, Ty. You and the team is just doing a great job this week. I'm really excited about this one. We get to have our board chair here as well as the head of the TABC. And I think anyone who's been through this journey with us for 5 months is really clear that the partnership that we've had with TABC has just been critical for our members, whether they be restaurants, bars that we've been leaning in to help. And you know, this is the start of this, right? So we were very fortunate to have a lot of communication before. That relationship has now strengthened. And I think what we'll talk about today is get an update from General Nettles, but also get into, you know, what's next session going to look like? What are the things that we need to do together to help continue to strengthen our ability to operate in the sector? So we're very lucky. The chairman of our board is also very involved in a lot of alcohol issues and has been a great resource for us too. And so I'm going to have John make some opening remarks on behalf of the general, and then we'll just kick it off and again, put some questions in Q&A and we'll answer as many as we can.
Good morning. And as a clarification to Emily's comment, I'm involved in alcohol issues, and that's not just consumption, it's actually legal issues related to alcohol. It's my great pleasure to be on this panel and to introduce to you the executive director of the TABC, General Bentley Nettles, who was appointed, I guess, just 3 years ago. And 3 years ago, he was brought in to, I guess, change the culture at the TABC, bring some needed changes that the governor and others thought were necessary. And so he's provided a really good framework of creating a partnership that we've never before experienced with the TABC and the Texas Restaurant Association, so that we can try to jointly resolve issues and go back and forth and actually discuss matters that come up and try to figure out solutions, which has become enormously important in this time of pandemic where everything seems to be changing on a daily basis. General Nettles, besides being executive director of the TABC, also is an attorney. He is a former brigadier general for the Texas Army National Guard. He has a degree in bachelor's in business management from Texas A&M and a law degree from South Texas College of Law. He also has a Master of Homeland Defense and Security from the Naval Postgraduate School, and he served a military fellowship at Tufts University, Fletcher School of International Law and Diplomacy. He has a tremendous background. He served combat missions or during combat during Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq. He received the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star Medal with 2 oak leaf clusters and the Purple Heart. He has been a tremendous supporter of the changes that have been necessary to try to address the pandemic and how it's affected everyone else. It is with great pleasure that I introduce to you my good friend, General Nettles. How are you this morning, sir?
Good, great. Thank you for that glowing introduction. I'm going to try to share my screen now. We have a presentation I put together, and I think I see it here. Can you all see that? Share. Wait, here we go. How about now?
Yes.
There we go.
Okay, good. So, you know, before we started, I was talking about how we've gotten more competent and capable with this. Sometimes I feel that way and sometimes I don't, in terms of online things. First of all, you know, your conference meeting is something I always look forward to every year. I'm sad that we're not able to all be together, but maybe next year we will. We have some challenges. I'm gonna go run through some stuff and tell you what we're doing. You'll notice that, let's see here, I'll go forward. There we go. I'm not dressed in a coat and tie today. I'm wearing what our agents typically wear when we go out. And part of that is because almost 2/3 of my folks are out trying to get compliance. And I want to talk about that because, you know, February 2020 looks very different than August of 2020. I appreciate the partnership we have with the Texas Restaurant Association. We're all trying to do the right thing. I know we all want to get back to normal as soon as possible. And one of the ways of doing this is hopefully to continue to battle this virus out there in doing smart things. I look at the numbers. We want people to be open. The governor wants people to be open, but we also have to protect our fellow Texans. So this is just a timeline of kind of what happened. You know, the disaster proclamation was in March, and suddenly everything stopped, right? I can remember my kids came home for spring break. I have 2 kids in middle school, and they never went back. It was like, okay, so now suddenly we had different challenges with childcare, and you know, I've been in Austin. Most of my folks are out engaging industry and have been. I'm in Austin 3 and 4 days a week. I try to get home to help spell my wife so that she doesn't order too much wine. But she's doing a great job, and our kids started back to school in person in College Station yesterday. So this will be interesting to see what happens for all of us. Going forward, you know, everybody got shut down. The governor in April reopened opened the restaurants at 25%. And then in May, he opened them up to bars at 25%, restaurants at 50%. Then he opened the restaurants at 75%, the bars at 50%. And then suddenly he shifted back. And of course, we talk about bars and restaurants, but in reality, it's something very different. If you make over 51% of your revenue from the sale of alcohol, then currently you're closed. If you're under the 51%, then you can be open on some limited capacity. And that continues to be a challenge for us, and I know it does for you. I know there are a lot of people out there struggling. Some folks have not reopened their doors, and they won't. We're tracking the number of renewals. We're down about $1 million a month in our fees and surcharges, folks getting into the business. Excise tax has amazingly been up. We're actually up over where we were last year. One of the things I want to point out with this is how you get information from us. One of the frustrations I have is we recently sent out a survey to the mixed beverage permit holders and asked them how they were getting information about what TABC was doing. And about almost 60% were saying they're getting it from the news media. And I'm like, that's not really a good solution. We have a lot of ways you can get information directly from the agency. One is we have a web page dedicated to coronavirus information, not only from our agency, but from other state agencies. We send out emails on a regular basis to industry, but you do have to sign up for it. Couple of things we started doing in March was, okay, if we can't come together, how do we continue to allow folks to do business? So we allowed for electronic application submissions for folks getting into the business. At the time, we didn't know how long this was going to occur. We also allow for people to print out the 60-day signs. There's no reason for you to have to wait for us to mail it to you if you can go ahead and get that up and start that time clock. We expedited delivery applications for those who are trying to deliver alcohol from their premises. We've also waived the cash credit law penalty. We've rolled that forward 3 times now. And then no retailer signature required when the wholesaler brings delivery. And part of that is for safety reasons, but just try and do the things that make sense. The governor has helped out the industry, and this is in March. They allowed us to refund temporary event permit fees for those canceled events during that time period. Now, that's important because under the statute, TABC has no authority and no mechanism by which we can refund fees. Distributors were allowed to repurchase surplus product because of the canceled events. They allowed the distribution trucks to deliver grocery supplies, which was a challenge during March. Since that time, the logistic chains have adjusted and they've not had to do that. And then also allowed mixed beverage restaurants to sell alcohol to go. So again, that's a waiver. And at some point, that's going to have to be addressed elsewhere because waivers will eventually go away. In April, May, we started the things the agency was allowed to do. We allowed electronic signatures instead of in present or signature on a application. Notary certifications, most of the notaries were shut down. So how did we address that and not keep people from being able to apply for renewals or first-time application? So we allowed an alternative. We gave out guidance on the production of hand sanitizers. We, on a case-by-case basis, not waived, but gave leniency to the payment of excise tax. I truly believe that that allowed the industry to keep people employed. And we've done that on a case-by-case basis, but it really was important for some of the large distributors. And then, of course, the guidance under GA18 and the GA23. We extended the expiration dates for seller servers to this month because of the difficulty. I mean, if people aren't open, I'm not sure you need seller servers, but at some point when you reopen, you do. And we were, that was a recommendation by the governor's Open Texas Task Force, which we adopted. Now, the governor, of course, allowed distributors to remove and replace malt beverages, allowed us to renew license beyond the deadline, which of course statutorily we could not have done. And we also allowed us, TABC, to waive late fees for license renewals. So all positive things in helping industry that's struggling out there. Then in, of course, current period, we have GA26, where he rolled it up, and then of course 28, where he closed the bars, kept the restaurants open, but on a limited capacity. He did allow us to give a 1-year renewal for mixed beverage permits, so you didn't have to apply for a 2-year and pay the additional cost. And then allowed us to modify licensed premises in a fairly expeditious manner. So if you're a restaurant and you're trying to stay at a 50% occupancy, this would allow you to incorporate areas of your sidewalks, parking lot to your premises to allow you to have more people in and still stay at the under 50% occupancy. And then we try to modify, how do you become a restaurant? We call it a restaurant, but it's not really a restaurant, right? So the challenge was the code, the law allowed people to do this anyway. And we have a lot of creative, smart people in this industry. So, folks said, well, okay, if you're under 51%, you can open, but if you're over, you can't. So how do we get open? So we simply tried to streamline that. We've had about 1,200 applications for folks to do that. Every application, they get a phone call from one of our auditors. They go through the process. They talk to them about best practices because this is a new business model for them, right? And we want them to be open, but we also want them to follow the safe standards set by the governor's office. The governor also allowed mixed drinks to go and for delivery orders. So those are things that he took, actions he took. Of course, once we get past this, I know there's not going to be immediate recovery. It'll take some time. I firmly believe that, and the chairman, my boss, that TAB success continues to be tied to industry and the partnership we have with industry, like with the Texas Restaurant Association. So we want to make sure that as we go forward, we continue to communicate and ensure, how do we get this? How do we remove the roadblocks for businesses to get reopened as quickly as possible and get back to some kind of normalcy, whatever that is. And I don't know, I'm hoping, prepare for the worst and hope for the best. The waivers will remain in place until either the governor terminates them or until the COVID disaster proclamation ends, or the legislature addresses that in the next legislative session. Now, there are actually still some waivers in place from Hurricane Harvey, but not all of them, and actually none that were associated with TABC. So some of the delivery or some of the alcohol to go, if the waiver goes away, so does that authority. So I encourage y'all, if you want that to continue, then you will need to address that in legislative session. Where we go forward, a really good question. I'm hoping that we'll be able to get things more open. The challenge we continue to have, although the numbers are going down, the positivity rate for testing continues to go up. And I know the governor's concern, as most folks are, is what does that mean 10, 20 days from now? If you increase the positivity rate for the coronavirus, is that going to mean an increased demand for hospital beds, ICU beds, treatment demands, and will that exceed our capabilities? Because then we run into challenges, right? Just like we're having in the valley right now. So the governor was very clear on how we open bars, or our industry members that sell over 51%. It's to get the positivity rate below 10% and have it sustained. I don't have any idea how we achieve that. And I know hopefully there are much smarter minds than mine working on it. But those are the threshold that he set out in order for us to reopen the over 51% businesses. In the middle of all this, of course, we still have what the legislature told us to do and what they funded us for prior to us hitting COVID-19. One of them was to have a new website. And so that will actually launch September 1st. I encourage you, once that comes online, to go and look at it, give us feedback. I think you're going to find that it's going to be transformational, really easy to use, and for you to get information from us about your business. And that continues to be the challenge. I mean, we have folks out there that simply don't want to call the agency, don't want to find out, and I'm like, I don't know why you would be in this business. This is a highly regulated business. And in this particular environment, y'all need to stay engaged. So I encourage you, please go to the website when it comes online. We want to provide that information. We try to push it out, and we try to stay engaged. And of course, I'm preaching to the choir because I know that the TRA members are not the folks that aren't getting the information, because I know from seeing all of y'all's communication and ours, there are just a lot of people out there that aren't plugged into the agency or to the industry associations. The next is we're constantly working on the transformation, the alcohol industry management system. This is going to be amazing, I think, when it comes online. It will transform the way that you engage the agency, because as a business owner, you'll be able to do it 24/7. You won't have to wait till our offices are open. You won't have to get somebody on the phone. You'll be able to go to a website, look at your accounts, look at your applications, look at your renewals, and find out their status. If you have to talk to us, then you'll be able to use this site in order to schedule appointments in order to schedule calls, etc. I think it's really going to be an amazing way to help industry. And then, of course, we're also looking at all the things we still have to do, and that is the legislature through sunset, collapse the number of permits. So we've got to take 64 down to 36. We've got to consolidate beer and ale. And so we are actively working on meeting these responsibilities. The final thing, which is going to affect industry tremendously, is the permit and fees. So the legislature took it out of the statute. It's going to be now up to the agency. We have to have something passed by September 1 of 2021. Otherwise, there will be no fees and no way for us to charge industry and no way for industry to be open. So it's a cascading effect. So we have been working diligently through this. We have some formulas and some analog ways of looking at it. We've looked at other states, but what typically should happen is if you're a mixed beverage restaurant and you want to do catering, you only have to have one permit with us. That permit's probably going to be more than what you paid in the past if all you had was a single permit, because it'll collapse up those permits into one. And so you'll have one permit that gives you authority to do all the things that in the past you had to have different certificates, different authorities in order to be able to do. But we're not there yet. We're still working on it. Alcohol delivery liability, the consumer delivery to permit, that is now active. We're also actively working on the education training for those drivers. I think this will also give restaurants a lot of opportunity to, just like your seller servers, once you hand off the food and the alcohol to a consumer delivery permitted entity, your responsibility should end at that point. It then goes to the consumer delivery permit holder as being responsible for making sure those things happen. And of course, this is second year, our annual compliance report will begin September 1 through December 1. So please, all of you, make sure that you do that so you don't get on our list. We continue to fight human trafficking. We've had several successes with this, even with everybody being shut down. As you might suspect, human trafficking hadn't gone away. So it continues to be a problem. And of course, y'all are the solution to that problem, because you know when it's happening in some other locations. So your assistance in helping us to do this is tremendous. One of the things I noticed that the national wholesale beer distributors adopted the Texas model for trying to get training out to their drivers across the nation to identify human trafficking. So I took that as a big praise of our effort. And of course, we have upcoming legislative session. Everybody's wondering about money. We currently have the LBB guidance out, but of course our issue is you all pay for us, you should get what you want. And the challenge typically is, although we're statutorily supposed to be funded by the fine, fees, and surcharges, they take it and then they give it back to us, and they don't give it all back to us. So you are actually paying for other things across the state, which is okay if you agree to it. But at the end of the day, making this agency work better that you're already paying for certainly helps. I encourage you to stay connected. We have a number of things we've rolled out. We're having online stakeholder meetings regarding rules. We're having virtual commission meetings. If you want TABC to be at your event like this one, we encourage you to reach out and invite us. And certainly y'all can have smarter people than me there, subject matter experts to answer questions. We do send out the industry emails, notifications. We have the monthly TABC talks, and they are online. So if you missed that particular talk, you can go access it. We have the industry brief, and then we have this social media outreach. And I think that brings me to the end. I'm happy to try to answer any questions if I can. So
General Nettles, one of the things that a lot of my clients are struggling with is how to calculate the current 51%. Are alcohol to-go sales or delivery sales calculated in that 51% at this point?
So the alcohol to go sales, I don't know the answer to that question, to be honest with you. I know that the food is counted. I don't believe that the to-go sales for alcohol is. So if you are pushing food, so you have an order, so you have a meal and alcohol, the food counts so that you reach your numbers. The to-go sales of alcohol, I believe, do not count against your numbers. It's only the on-premise consumption. If
Okay.
you're, yeah, so.
And I know a question was raised earlier. Does on-premise consumption count if you deliver it to, they pick it up and they park in your parking lot and eat it and drink it? Because let's say, because a lot of people are doing, to go, and so people will pick it up and then they'll park in the back of your parking lot and eat their food and drink their drink. How do we address that because I guess it's a little difficult for us to be out patrolling the parking lots on people who have picked up food and alcohol from us.
Yeah, I think once you hand it to them, as long as you're not encouraging people, so the challenge we've had is where people set up picnic benches and okay, come pick it up the door, but you're allowing them to go out these unpermitted areas that you control and consume. So you can't create like a de facto bar outside your location by setting up things. But if someone's picking it up and they're driving around back, or they're, I don't know that that's going to be an issue with us.
Okay.
General, here's a tricky one a little bit, but it's been coming up a lot. So whether it be a bar or a restaurant that, was a bar or got stuck in kind of a misclassification. And what's great to hear is your numbers represent ours, which we think there's about 12 to 1,400 that were stuck in that. And so first, thanks for helping us with that creative solution y'all came up with. It's made a huge difference. We had coffee shops, that got caught in that. One of the questions come as licensing renewals come into play. If you've been closed 3, 4, 5 months, is there any break on that licensing? And I know it's kind of a tricky one, but people are saying, hey, listen, I was forced to close. I'm not open, or I was closed for X number of months. Do I get any break on my licensing renewal?
Okay, so the governor's waiver allowed us to renew people beyond the statutory deadline, if that's what you're asking.
So if they have an annual, so we got down to a year renewal, right, versus 2
Right.
years. And so on that 1 year, if they were closed for 5 months, is there any type, it's like if your electricity goes out in your house for 3 days, right, and you get 12 cents credit. Is there any type of credit that's going to be available to those guys?
So currently, we don't have the ability to refund it. I know that the commission, my bosses, are looking at, is there a way for us to credit that going forward in the next renewal? Currently, we don't have a decision on that, but it is one of the things that we're considering to see if there's a way we can help industry.
Okay. Actually, that's great news, because that's better than I would have thought. So that's a huge help. And I think it's just, you weren't generating revenue to pay those licensing fees, right, from their standpoint. So thank you for actually addressing that and considering it. I had one more, which was around the definition of a restaurant. One of the things we've been talking about as TRAs in this next session, how do you statutorily really define what a restaurant is? Because we have to imagine we're going to be in some point, this may happen again. And maybe from the agency side, do you see the need to do that, right? Where we really are clarifying what is a bar and what is a restaurant?
Well, yes. I mean, there's some tremendous challenges with this 51% issue, and because under the code, it's actually 60, right? So
Right,
60,
right.
40. But they were trying to do something, and we are considering, I've been talking to the chairman about, or is there a different way that we deal with food and beverage certificates to make it simpler, not only for the industry to comply, but also for us to enforce? Because my enforcement guys go out, they don't know anything about numbers. I don't want them there looking at accounts. I want them to figure out, okay, at a glance, is this location following the governor's guidance? And the challenge is, and the big challenge I see to the restaurant business so that we don't have some kind of a snapback where the governor closes down your capability or capacity. Is those restaurants that serve food for a while and then they stay open to act like a bar. That's something that's going to be a big challenge. And I know everybody's concerned about it. They're concerned about putting the college kids back, putting the kids back in school. And now suddenly, they're going to locations that are restaurants because they're under 50% because they've been closed.
Right.
Yet, at 10 o'clock, 11, 12 o'clock at night, they're still open with an after hours permit. I think that's going to be a challenge for y'all and for the agency.
Yeah, and I think, I think the good news is, and we're going to be short on time here in a second, but I think, across the board, what we've been thankful for is the compliance, right? And I think we've actually had a better set of reporting coming into us, or restaurants/bars reporting on each other, right, when they've gotten reopened. And I think the really good news is we did see a pretty significant drop in that positivity rate. We're at 10.8% now. So we're flirting with the governor's number. Like
Right.
you, I don't know how much longer it's going to take to get there, but we're getting closer. And the only way we're going to do that is everyone's got to follow the rules. And General, we keep telling, if you've been opened as a restaurant, you have to follow the restaurant protocols, which are from the governor, right? And so if you don't, and I'm desperately worried about colleges coming back, because we've seen another, Georgia, Florida, a little bit ahead of the curve. And whether or not, for some reason we seem to be the whipping boy, right? So whether or not it comes from a college, we're going to get blamed. That's just how this has gone down. So I think you're right. We need to be extra vigilant in the next couple of weeks so restaurants don't take the brunt of actually stepping backwards instead of stepping forwards.
Some of the big challenges we continue to have are social media posts with people standing shoulder to shoulder, standing up, trying to order a drink, things like that everybody knows. I mean, this is a heavily regulated industry. And, if you don't want to follow those rules, then maybe this isn't an industry for you. But I will tell you that based on our numbers, our inspections and audit, we only have about a 3% violation rate. So most people are trying to do the right thing. They really are. And so both the chairman and I, when talking to other agencies, have represented said this industry needs to be trusted. They're worthy of your trust. Let's give them an opportunity. And so we continue to push that. But of course, every social media post with people violating it erodes that credibility that we have. So,
and all of our credibility when we speak with the governor's team to say that we're worthy of more. I said it to someone, they said, you're not fighting for the bars enough. I said, well, when I got 10 videos, it's hard for me to have any ground to stand on. Right? So I think it's tough.
And it seems like a lot of people are taking into saying, okay, we're going to do some social protest, and we're going to protest, the governor's ruling by opening up, even though when they're not qualified to do that. You don't have any discretion on enforcement of that at all, do you? You have to enforce that.
No, prior to June 26, before they were shut down, what we would typically do is go out, and if they were in violation, then we would hit them with an emergency order, but then we would negotiate with them and settle, because I want them to be open, right? So if you agree to put things in place to make sure that you're going to honor and abide by the governor's safety protocols, then we wanted them to be open. That's all we were doing. And so we settled with most of the people that we had shut down. But since then, now that, the governor said that if you're over 51% and you're closed and you choose to open, that tells me you're not wanting to follow the rules. You're not trying to make the effort to get a food and beverage certificate. You're not trying to be a restaurant. You're not trying to find legitimate ways to be open. You're just saying, I want to be a bar and I have the right to open. And I'm like, well, that's not how it works in this state. It's a privilege to be able to sell alcohol beverages. The legislature made it that way. We have to enforce it. So you're right. I don't have a lot of discretion once someone has said, we're not going to follow the rules, because then the question in my mind becomes, what other rules are they not following?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, General, I want to be sensitive to time, and so grateful that, like you said, we'd love to see you in person, but we've come to live in these Zoom boxes, and your team, I just would be remiss. Your team has been tremendous. We are day and night, and there's many weekends, whether it be Jared or Matt or others, that just respond within seconds to help a restaurant in trouble. And that partnership is so meaningful. And so we look forward to going into session. We have great plans to solidify alcohol to go. It's been a lifesaver for us. It really has for our restaurants. And then, as I mentioned before, we're happy to lean in where needed to help the bars get reopened in a meaningful way. I think there's a lot of the restaurant protocols that could apply, right, if they were, as you said, were done diligently. So we certainly have an interest in helping our friends across the aisle as well. So, but huge thank you to you, and hang in there. We'll get through this. And John, of course, for all your support as chair of our board. And yeah, I think serving alcohol is a privilege. I like that. That's a great takeaway.
Well, thank you all for having us. I would just encourage all your members that if you have a question, go to our website, sign up. But if that doesn't answer it, make a phone call, send us an email. I mean, that's what we're here for, is to be a resource to help industry be open and in compliance. That's what we want. I know that's what y'all want. It's only when folks, we tell them and they refuse to comply that we have to take enforcement actions. So.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, General.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.